Oh my gosh.
Don't put any of this on camera.
I won't. Okay, are we ready? Hello, and welcome back to Good Matters, a show about the intersection between business and social good and the people who are part of it all. I hope that's you, and I appreciate you being here. Today I'm sitting down with someone who I was really fortunate to meet at a social impact event here in LA. I was instantly intrigued by his passion for people, understanding people and empowering people, and how he integrates that passion into his business. The founder of The Candid Professional, Corbin J. Pickett. At The Candid Professional, Corbin focuses on professional empowerment through college and career coaching, speaking, workshops, and business and brand consulting. Corbin and I talk about his journey into social entrepreneurship, as well as human-centered design thinking, positive relationship building, career storytelling, and a bunch of other really great topics to know as a social entrepreneur. And of course, we talk about mentorship. And as we were chatting, Corbin was listing out the types of people you want to have in your corner, your mentor dream team, if you will, that I thought would be really cool to have as we're keeping our eyes and our ears open for people who could be our possible mentors as we grow our businesses. And so Corbin was kind enough to put it into a worksheet for you that lists out all these type of people and kind of what to look for in each one. And I thought it was really cool. If you're already part of the Defining Good family, it's in your inbox. And if you're not, you can grab it through the link in the post below. Corbin, thank you so much for being here and taking the time. Tell us a little bit more about The Candid Professional and what brought you there and what it is that you do.
Right now, I'm really focusing on primarily working with young people and young professionals, whether that's developing their career storytelling narrative. So that might be applicable to developing their LinkedIn or resume, or crafting that perfect MBA essay, or whatever it might be, but really being able to lend that extra ear. And it's weird, it oftentimes ends up being a very much so therapeutic session and type of conversation that we have. And you say, okay, where do you want to go with your career and with your life? And you get this, and they just, they get into it. And it's really nice being able to provide that for them, that outlet.
Yeah.
At the center, the focal point of a lot of my work is relationship building. And ironically, but maybe not so much, the individual that we oftentimes struggle having the best relationship with is ourselves. So that's where I feel I can leverage my experience in the formal mentoring world, and learning a lot about how do you approach someone in a non-biased dynamic. How do you come to the table, allow yourself to see them as them, and engage in listening to understand, and with no intent to respond. And how do you do that then for yourself? You know, just looking in the mirror, we have so much feedback for ourselves. You know, sometimes we need to be able to look in the mirror, have no feedback, and say, I accept you for you, and I'm appreciative of all that I have to work with in front of me.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. So how do you play that in then to the mentoring that you do? How does that where does that intersection take place?
The biggest thing that doesn't come within that second nature flow in how we currently build relationships is the introspection. What subconscious biases am I coming with to the dynamic? What perspectives am I not aware of that this person might have that I'm not privy to? Or what are some of the things that have impacted me most in my life? Chances are there's something similar that has impacted them in a similar scope. So just having that wherewithal of self and understanding that, you know, if the world is a play, that there are other actors on stage and you're not the headliner, you're just you're one of many, and to value that other individual has just as much equity in the space that you're stepping in.
Yeah, that's so cool. So career specifically career storytelling. Talk a little bit more about that. Like, what does that mean, and how do you work that in?
Yeah, some of the work that I've been doing, collaborative efforts with my buddy Richard. Hey Richard, with the Plus Me project.
Yeah.
Really helping me understand how many of us don't really think about what our story is. I've always been very keen to address this from a career perspective, once you establish the understanding of strategic relationship building, and being able to, sit down at the table with that non-biased lens, then you're able to really hear them and hear what they're interested in, what their strengths are, and maybe they're not telling you verbatim what it is, but as you're asking questions and you're listening, you're hearing it in their natural flow of conversation, hearing the things that they're not picking up on as they speak, and also asking them questions that we're not used to being asked. Whether it's our education system or work culture, there's a lot of introspective questions that are just tossed to the side and never even picked up or analyzed.
So this is so cool, this concept of career storytelling. It's new to me. What is then the goal of getting that story out?
Yeah, so everyone comes to me with different focus points or midlife, quarter-life crises.
Yeah.
And so it's really first and foremost listening, understanding where they're coming from, understanding what they're trying to build or move away from. And so I have a revolving list of questions. I've become pretty comfortable with assessing, okay, where you're at, the vibes you're, giving me. These questions I need to ask you and funnel in a bit more. And then I'm able to really understand, how are we going to identify your interests and strengths in that combination into amplifying where you're at, or being able to hang on to a strength as you transition into a new arena. And that's what I'm really big on. How are you leaning on your strengths?
So then, you're a social impact professional, though. That's how we met, and I love that that's how you've integrated that into your business. Can you talk a little bit more about that? How does that piece play into all these other things that you do?
Absolutely. I'm really fascinated with the concept of human-centered design thinking, and really would love to see that implemented a lot more in communities that are overlooked in the United States. I feel somewhere along the line it got really sexy to do social impact work at scale in countries outside of the United States, while overlooking a lot of communities that need that same support here. So I would love to provide that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tell us more about the human-centered design aspect. I think that's a term I've been hearing more lately, but I don't know that everyone is super familiar with it yet. So talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So, I've been nerding out on this for a little bit, so I know the official definition.
Okay.
Designers, as in graphic designers, web designers, what have you, are taught how to take on a project looking through the lens of the individual you're supporting, or the client you're working with. And that is design thinking. So this thought process has been scaled and used in the corporate arena as design thinking and leveraging everyone's perspective, everyone's buy-in, everyone having equity in the solution development process. And it's worked very well in different corporate entities and in different facets. And very recently, it's been being applied to the social impact world. And so hence the tack on of the preceding names, human-centered design thinking. What tiptoed me into this world was my background in mentoring. Once again, that whole focal point of positive, constructive, and even if we want to be technical, measurable relationship building. That's a component we leave out a lot. And wondering, how can we leverage all these different real strategic, positive ways to build relationships in the corporate world and in cross-sector engagement. And that led me to human-centered design thinking. And so since I've been able to bake it into a couple of different projects of mine, one more recently, a project called Collaborate IE. IE stands for Inland Empire, since no one really knows about us. I'm gonna put us on the map. So this event focused on dissecting the career access gap for young people within the Inland Empire. So we're just east of LA, but not close enough that our young people can hop on a bus or a train and access all the wonderful jobs and headquartering companies in LA proper. So how do we change that? How do we give them the same access and opportunity? And so I wanted to host an event, and I did. I had two panels, a panel of young people stating their perspectives on their trials and tribulations with career development. A panel of industry professionals, HR reps from Disney Corporation, couple of local district representatives, a local member from our San Bernardino school superintendent office. So really healthy grouping of perspectives to really give their insight on what can we do, what have we been really failing at, and what have we seen work in smaller buckets or in buckets outside of the Inland Empire that we can bring into our area. So that event ended and concluded with a human-centered design thinking activity where we had the whole audience and all the panelists have their buy-in and shared thought process in what were the three main things hindering young people in the Inland Empire. And since then, we've gone about implementing or contacting different groups to scale their work in our area. So it's really cool to be able to see community buy-in, community leaders chip in with their 2 cents as well, and see some actionable points come from this.
I want to touch back on mentorship because we haven't really had a chance to get there, even though it's a huge part of what you do and what your expertise is in. And I hear a lot when I'm listening, especially to entrepreneurs, talk about their mentors. And these were my mentors, and you always hear that in like the grand story. But I feel like I never have gone down to the nitty-gritty of like, what are the things finding a mentor? What do you look for? Like, can you just go through a couple of those high level touch points of the mentorship world?
Absolutely. So this is actually one of my favorite things to speak on.
Perfect.
One of the hardest things I think we as human beings have in articulating is what exactly do we want? And we can dream it up all day, but something happens like a deer in headlights when opportunity is really present. You either put on an act or not try at all.
Yeah.
So, as opposed to being very clear and with understanding what you want, leading with that, and articulating it straightforward. At the end of the day, you really ideally want a team of mentors. I call it, you want your own personal board of directors. And ideally speaking, they even play their own particular roles. Yeah. Maybe you have someone who's that ideal advocate for you, always down to write a letter of rec or call someone up and say, no, you need to hire this individual. Or that coach, someone who's gonna, rile you up, get you going, walk you through different processes that you haven't gone through before, or you be an apprentice to them. So maybe similar to like a coach, but specific, very specific to your industry or job. And then someone who can be a confidant, that ear, and I even like to think having two confidants.
Those are the kind of the mentor personas, if you will. I like that.
Yeah, having your own, dream team, so to speak. And where to look for them all throughout your life. Being really keen on what are your interests, what are your hobbies, what are your passions, what are your strengths, and leaning on those to build those relationships with people. I'm really big on one-on-ones. So hitting up individuals that you find interesting, whether you can find them on social media or you come across them in the workspace or through friends, and just simply asking, hey, would you mind sitting down for coffee or connecting over the phone for 30, 45 minutes? I'm really interested in your role, or I'm interested in how you navigated out of your role, or whatever the case might be. Figuring out what is that issue you're having, what is it, what burning question do you have? And even keeping a list of them. So I like to be proactive with what are the things I'm struggling with, what are the things I need help with. And as people come in and out of my life, those are the questions that are top of my mind, and makes it a little bit more easy for me to empower people to help me.
I think sometimes people think of mentorship and it feels like a huge ask, which kind of brings me to my next question is, there's kind of two ways of thinking. Some people pay maybe for mentorship or are part of paid groups of mentors. Do you have opinions there?
Oh yes, I'm extremely biased on this outlet. So I don't think mentorship should ever be paid for. I think it's something that you truly benefit best from the more organic the relationship is. Understanding that someone is genuinely taking time out of their day, taking time out of their life, and strategically trying to identify ways to add value to you, there's a whole nother level of value it offers when it's not paid for, when you know that's voluntary, when you know you matter.
Yeah.
Not your dollars, not if you go broke tomorrow, you don't matter anymore, but you matter to this person. And that's the central part of building a fundamental relationship.
Part of that is about reciprocation, right? It's like I see these people who talk about paid mentorships, and maybe that is because it needs to have some sort of reciprocation. But in the non-paid mentorship, especially, how do you go about then setting kind of expectations or boundaries? Because obviously people only have so much time. And so what would you say, what would be your advice to that end?
I have a few mentees, and it's different with all of them, but I do really, really understand and really, really value that each relationship is its own and should be treated as such. So I approach each of them as a blank canvas and acting brand new. So what's your favorite social media app? What's your favorite way to communicate? Are you someone who hates talking on the phone? Are you someone who can go months without talking to your closest friend and then pick up a conversation like you never dropped off?
Yeah.
So just getting a sense for their vibe, set a standard and a mutual set of goals that we can see if this works for the first few months, and then we can readjust along the way. You know, each relationship is different coaching, different mentorship, and will also require you to bring in different supporting members to support you in supporting them.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert on whoever I'm working with, and I always try to leverage my network to provide additional value.
Yeah, cool. When you really boil it down, it's just a relationship. Like as I'm listening to you speak, I'm like, oh, well, duh. Like, of course, it's just you need to figure out what the differences are for different people, and like that makes so much sense. Hello. But no, it's really, really good though. I think that will help expel some fears, you know, for people, or some maybe intimidation for people that have this idea of what mentorship should look like. So I really love that.
Hopefully it does expel some fears, but I wouldn't go jump and say it's as simple as it sounds. And this is something that was a revelation for me as well. Interesting tidbit about me, I have flat feet. And so this came up during middle school for me, and I love basketball. I was playing basketball, my feet would swell up, and had to go to the doctor and learned about this, got fit for custom orthotics, and learned a lot about how it was impacting my knees, pain in my back, and learned that there's a proper scientific way to actually walk. And so that caught me off guard. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So we just go about doing this thing second nature all the time, walking, but yet there's an actual proper way to do it. What else do we go about doing on a second nature basis when there's actual proper strategic ways to do it? And relationship building is definitely at the top of that list.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something we take for granted, almost as like, this is just something we know how to do, but there's a way to do it, and do it with a positive. I think that's what we had talked about a little bit earlier, right? Like positive relationship building. So you work directly with a lot of social entrepreneurs. You're in the social entrepreneurship space, which is how we met. I said that earlier. What's something you see as a common mistake or misconception that you could share with people just starting out or who are on the road of social entrepreneurship themselves?
Two things that I see a lot on total opposite ends of the spectrum. One is be passionate about what you're involving yourself. It's one thing if you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're just out to start a business, out to make money, out to receive attention. That's a whole nother scope. But in the social impact space and social enterprise space, I think there's a special responsibility that we have being entrepreneurials and leaders in this sector, and really being understanding that the best support is one that is sustainable. And if your passion isn't into it, it won't be sustained. And then on the other end of the spectrum, make money.
Yeah. On the flip side of that.
And just going right in line with the last thing I said about passion and sustainability, if you're not making money, you're not being sustainable.
Right.
And if you're banking on grants go away, new administrations come in, and there's fears of what money will be available. Stop depending on others. Be strategic on how you create your for-profit model. So that's what I mean by make money.
So good. So is there anything, this is something I like to ask everyone, is there anything you'd wish you had known when you were first starting out that you didn't, that you go back and you'd be like, oh man, this is what I tell younger Corbin?
I would say to own your vision. So this was a newer revelation for me. Earlier this year, I had a business partnership that fell through, and it was really impactful to me emotionally, obviously entrepreneurially, and so at that point I had to really just on a whim rebrand, re-strategize. What's my new why? What strengths am I going to lean on during this transition of mine? And had I from the beginning owned my own vision, I wouldn't have had to do that. But I don't think that that's something that I'd go back and change. The experiences I had leading up to this, everything was so instrumental. Everything is so accumulative, and the grander impact I'm able to continue on and have moving forward. So it's a learning curve that I would give him that little tidbit, but I would hope that nothing would have changed in his past.
Yeah. Moving forward, I know you have a lot of new and exciting projects going on. Can you share some of those with us? Like what's up and coming and new for you that you want to tell us about?
Yeah, so we talked a lot about relationships. I've been scaling my work from working with young people a lot, and I still do, to working with young professionals and older professionals. And I really want to step into the space, and I started to tiptoe into it, of doing professional development trainings as well as nonprofit social media marketing consulting.
So good. So where can then we find you as you are now in the brand stage? Where's the best way for people to connect and find you?
Yep. Best way to connect with me, follow me, is on Instagram. I post daily, take you through my entrepreneurial woes, all the struggles. It's not glamorous. And then as well on my website, both are titled The Candid Professional. So you can check me out on both of those platforms. And if you want to catch me in person, you can catch me end of January. I will be at the National Mentoring Summit doing a workshop there on leveraging social media for social impact. And crossing my fingers, NSBE invites me out to their conference as well, and be able to talk to more young people on leveraging social media to build your network and identify mentors.
So good, right? I know I say that a lot, but I feel so lucky to get to talk to people like Corbin who really make you think about yourself and how you interact with the people around you. I hope you liked it. And if you want to get that download of your Mentor Dream Team to be thinking about as you're looking for mentors and continuing to work with mentors, I hope you are. Be sure to grab that from the post below. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to send them my way. If you like this episode, and especially if you know of other people who are also using business for good, please share it with them. And don't miss a thing by signing up for Defining Good updates, tools, and free resources you can't get anywhere else on defininggood.com. Remember, you have a unique voice and a distinct circle of influence, and you can choose to ignore it or you can use it to change the world. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Okay, forgive me, because I probably should know what this is. What is NES?
I don't necessarily think you should.
Okay.
Are you an engineer by any chance? Okay.
Okay,
then,
so I shouldn't know.
No.
Okay,
no.
good. I'm like, is this some social impact cool thing that I don't know about? I'm so on the outside.